Hello everyone. I recently saw a video that Stitch Obsessed made about basting a quilt using glue. And since I don't really care for this quilt that much, I figured this would be the perfect one to practice on. So I went out and bought a bottle of Elmer's school glue, the same kind that she uses. And I'm going to see if this hack actually works and if it makes things easier. So I started out with cutting all of my pieces to the correct size, making sure that I had my batting and my backing a little bit bigger than my quilt top. And then I laid my batting down on my table and I'm just going to make sure that everything's lined up and it's where I want it to be. I don't want too much overhang. And I'm going to do this half at a time. So I'm just going to fold over the one half and then pick up all the fuzzies that I seem to have everywhere. So she says to use a very thin line of the Elmer's glue. And this took me a few tries to get it right and accurate where it was coming out consistently, but I did get it eventually. And you just swirl the glue on. I will leave links to her videos in the description box below. She has one showing exactly how to do this and one answering a whole bunch of questions about what people had about using this glue. Anyways, so I'm just going to swirl some nice thin lines of glue on here, trying to not make a mess or leave big globs. You can kind of see there, it's not a very thick bead. You don't want it to be too thick. At least that's what she suggests. So that's what I'm going to do. Then I'm just going to fold my backing over and then pressing firmly, I'm going to just smooth everything out and make sure that everything's nice and flush and that we don't have any wrinkles anywhere because this is apparently really good for preventing puckers in the back. And that is something that I struggle with. I cannot seem to make a quilt without having some puckers in the back. I don't know if this would be more time consuming than taping, or I mean, not taping, than pinning. But so far, I felt like this was going just as quickly, if not quicker. And once I did the one half, I just went to the other side, folded up my backing again, and then just same thing. Put the thin bead of glue on there and do that. While I wait for that glue to dry, I'm going to give my quilt top a good press to make sure that it's nice and flat and it's ready to go. But if you are impatient, you can use your iron and add some heat to the glue, and this will actually make it dry a lot faster. If you're doing a large quilt, that would be very time consuming, so I would just wait the 20-30 minutes for it to dry because that's all it takes. Once that's done, I flipped everything over and now I'm adding my quilt top and we're going to do the exact same thing. And here I'll do the same thing as before, just do half at a time. So I'm just going to flip up half my quilt top and then just add a very thin line of glue again. I was a little bit worried about the glue showing through on the lighter fabrics, but I was actually very impressed with how little it did. And once I'm done putting on my glue, I'll just fold that down and then once again, just using my hands, pressing firmly and just smoothing everything out and making sure that there's no wrinkles or little bubbles anywhere. We want everything to be smooth and flat as possible. It's just going to make the quilting process a whole lot easier. And I do actually attempt to do some free motion quilting on this one. I have never done that before, and trust me, it is not pretty. But honestly, I figured this was the perfect time to do it because I didn't really care for this quilt top. So if it didn't work out, then I wasn't going to be too upset about having to throw it away. I did end up making a little bit of a mess with the glue here and there, so it's just a learning curve. But I let this dry for about half an hour and like it's stuck on there. You would actually have to pull on it pretty good to get it off. So I think this will hold up very well, but I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine and I'm going to try to quilt this and see how it holds up. So genius that I am, I have never free motion quilted before. I made myself a little square, did a little squigglies, and I was like, yeah, that looks pretty good. And then I jumped right into the quilt. I highly recommend that you practice a little bit more than I did. I didn't end up getting even stitches and my swirls were not very smooth, but like I said, this was just going to be a practice quilt for me. And I hadn't decided at this point yet if I was even going to bother finishing it or if I was just going to throw it out after I was done. Well, I did end up finishing it because for some unknown reason, my niece really loves this one. I did finish the binding and I washed it right away too because I wanted to know how everything would react to the glue. My quilting is not the best, and I did notice that when I was hand sewing my binding down, anytime I came to a spot where there was some glue, it was a little bit tougher to get the needle through, but it still worked. It wasn't impossible. And as far as I can tell, all of the glue washed out very nicely. I couldn't feel any of the glue lines anymore. So I was very happy with that. So I will definitely be using this method more often. It's a nice, safe, non-toxic method for me to use instead of the spray since I have kids in the house. That's all I have. Thanks for stopping by, and until next time.